and welcome to Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. I'm so glad that you were able to tune in today. My name is Jasmine, and I'm a member here at Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. I'm also a member of the youth department, and I'm so glad again that you were able to join us tonight. To my right, I have with me, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenyatta, and I'm a school psychologist. I work for DeKalb County School District, and I've been there for the last 4 years.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Stubbs Brown. I'm a mental health professional. Currently, I work with adults in the mental health field. I've worked with kids, adolescents, and now I'm working with the geriatric population in crisis.
And to my left, I have.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Enedine Andre-perales. I'm an educator. I've been a high school history teacher for 25 years. I'm also a mom of a college freshman.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Crockett. I'm a cybersecurity specialist with the state of Georgia, and I am also a certified community coach for Henry County Schools.
And again, thank you all for joining us. Like I mentioned earlier, this is Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, our Blue Carpet Teen Talk. We are so thankful to our pastor and first lady, Pastor Roderick Weathersby, and First Lady LaShondra Weathersby for coming up with this wonderful idea of Blue Carpet Teen Talk, a platform that is available for our youth to interact, to be able to speak about, current topics and issues that are going on and affecting them in their everyday life. So we are so glad that you joined us tonight. Tonight we will be discussing mental health and the youth. So 2020 has been quite a year. The pandemic has definitely, I think, tested everybody. Thankfully, we all came through. We're still standing, but it has been a storm. I know for me. Yeah. Has it been a storm for anybody else?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I will agree.
So I know that it has been a storm for our youth and our younger generation who had to, struggle with going to school virtually and trying to do homework from home, trying to learn from home. Even our youth who are in college, not being able to experience the college experience that we all got to experience. And so we wanted to talk tonight about how mental health is affecting our youth, because it is in fact affecting them. So one of the first questions that I have, and I'm going to start first with you, Ms. Brianna Stubbs, if you could, in your own words, tell me what is the difference between mental health and self-care, and is there a difference?
So I think there is a difference, but one of the ways I conceptualize it is when you talk about self-care, mental health is in that. And so I think of mental health coming in and impacting my self-care.
And what about you, Ms. Enedine? If you had to give your own definition, or do you think that there's a difference between mental health and self-care?
For me, the mental health aspect is about what is going on internally versus self-care often to me can be what you're taking care of on the exterior as well, that contributes to helping improve what's going on the inside.
Okay. And now that we're speaking about self-care, I know one thing that's been a current trend on social media, just in regular life, is this whole topic of self-care. I feel like before we got to 2020, nobody had a self-care routine. And now everybody has a self-care routine. Can you tell me, Bree, please, what is your self-care routine? What does it include?
So for me, I think self-care is just taking care of me, giving what I need, feeding my soul. So when I think of self-care, I think about, taking myself out. I work, I'm a professional. Some days I need some days off to get my mental health together, and bring myself back and, ground myself. So I just think it's about taking care of yourself, whether that's going to the spa, getting some food. If you're just a Netflix and chill type of person, whatever it is for you, I don't think any one person can say this is self-care, because it's all internalized and what's best for yourself. So.
Right. And I definitely agree. I know for me, I definitely took myself out on dates.
You have to.
You have to. Anyway, has anybody ever taken themselves out on a date before?
I could probably speak to that. So I take myself on dates, but it's never really by myself. I have a dog, and that is a part of my self-care routine. when I lived in Savannah. That was one of the things I did. I noticed that after college, it was like, okay, I'm getting into this rut of going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. And to kind of spice that up, I was like, okay, well, I'll go downtown. But because I didn't feel all the way comfortable being alone, bringing my dog was a part of just my self-care routine. Now, a lot of people look at me and like, that is not a child. But for me, that's my sense of comfort. So for me, I do take myself out, and then a lot of times I use my dog because that's my comfort.
Okay. Anybody else?
Self-care for myself usually is something like as simple as a walk, taking my 2 dogs for a walk, or engaging with my kids who are on my dance team. I'm the head coach for the same team that Brianna is my assistant coach for, and Brianna was one of my students years ago. But within my relationship and my marriage, self-care for us was always planned events, concerts, and the things that we enjoy doing together. And when COVID happened, all of that came to a screeching halt. So we had to find a different way to spend that quality time to, relax our minds and get away from the everyday issues. And, it was kind of like Netflix and chill. And of course, I'd wind up watching some action, something that wasn't always my thing, but you support your spouse in your activities. And he'd put up with my girly things. And for me, mental getaways included watching films that are made in Africa or South Korea, just seeing how other places and cultures and people are living. And, it just kind of grounds you with, okay, there's some things I need to fix. You're working too hard. You're not spending enough quality time with family. Schedule a trip if you can do that, even if it's local. But reconnect somehow, whether it's just you or you and your partner, you and friends. But find time to reconnect. Even with COVID, FaceTime became an amazing tool, more than ever. Yeah. Touching base with people remotely also was a part of my healthcare. Self-care with making sure I'm checking on people. They were checking on me because some people were battling things during COVID that we had no idea what they were dealing with. And as we're coming out of that, they're acknowledging, the fact that you checked on me regularly, that really helped me a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, my self-care routines really involve having a little more peace. I'm a mom. I have a 3-year-old, and anybody who knows, having a toddler run around, sometimes that creates a lot more chaos, and the house is loud. So what I do, every Sunday, I make it a point to actually take a sit-down bath. And I've had to actually be intentional about that because as an adult, especially as a working adult and having wearing multiple hats, it's easy for me to just, hey, I'm gonna take a shower. I'm gonna get a shower. I'm gonna go to sleep, and that's it. But I had to be very intentional about, I'm gonna take a 2-hour bath, and that was my time to process. It was on a Sunday. I could think about how I wanted this week to go, how I wanted my attitude to be on Monday morning. So it was, for me, it was like a processing time. Yeah.
Okay. And I do want to, because we have youth that are watching. Some of the youth, I know when I was in my parents' house, I was in high school, or even when I was in college, I didn't have the ability to go to a spa like I do today. I may not have taken myself out on a date by myself because I'm young, right? That's not safe. So what practical tips would you have for our youth who are at home with their parents, with their grandparents, and, this world is weighing on them? What practical tips for self-care would you have for them?
I would honestly say doing something physical, whether it is a dance video game or just walking, exercising, but something physical has to be going on because our children are so much more sedentary than our generation was, and they're not moving and getting that energy out, and it's all just kind of building up from being in the same spot all day. And with them working remotely, physically, some of the things that the kids were experiencing, neck aches, shoulder aches, right. Weight gain from not moving around as much. So that also affected them. But I would absolutely say our kids need to move. They need to be moving.
I definitely like that because that was the one thing I did take on during COVID. I think Jasmine thinks I'm crazy, but I took on like hiking. I looked everywhere in Atlanta. I literally wake up on Sundays
Now,
most
you
weeks.
have to expound upon your hiking now, because Miss Kenyatta likes to cook when she goes hiking. You guys, we're not talking just the day of. We're taking pots and pans out there. We're cooking whole meals.
I'm not gonna do that, me.
We go hiking with you.
She is an expert at hiking. Okay.
I wouldn't say expert, we're learning. But no, I do like just looking at the whole map of Atlanta because there's so many places to go. People live here for years and then they don't know there's other things to do. So I do like just being able to go outside. Walking outside, it just increases your serotonin levels and makes you happier. Like getting fresh air, I do that at work sometimes, and I know my capacity and my role, I can do that a little bit more. I can step outside if I need a breath of fresh air. So for students and our kids, like you said, walking outside, that's easy. That's something you can do. If you don't have an area that may not be safe because we don't know what these houses look like, there's other things you could do in the house, including like journaling, drawing. I love anything artistic. And also, that's ways you can make money eventually. If you take on a hobby like drawing, art, writing, that could potentially make you money later. So starting a hobby like that could be helpful.
Right.
I was definitely gonna say create a hobby, get a hobby, because when you get stressed or if you get too overwhelmed, you need something to take your mind off whatever is causing you that stress or being overwhelmed. Having a hobby can definitely do that for you. I would also agree with you on doing something physical, because that's a way to release that energy.
Right.
And a lot of times people don't realize how much energy they have or how much stress or how much they have built up within themselves, and it just comes out unexpectedly, at the most imperfect time. And so if you do something physical, that's when you can release some of that energy and some of that stress. So
I agree. And then go ahead, Bree.
Oh, no, I was just going to kind of piggyback off what everybody else was saying about hobbies and things. I always say tap into your talents. Because that releases something in you, I always feel more relaxed. I dance. And I always feel more relaxed when I dance, whether I'm happy, angry, sad. Dancing fixes everything. It doesn't matter. So I always feel like kids have the opportunity to tap into their talents because the youth, they're so talented.
Right.
And it's only getting better. Like we keep seeing all kinds of stuff, but I think it's important that they find what they enjoy, what they're good at, and they really tap into that. And I think that could be a form of self-care for them.
And I would also even suggest to some of the youth that may be open to it, and I think that this generation would be open to it, is meditating or yoga. And I say this generation because I know personally I started doing meditation and yoga, and my mom's not going to like me for this, but she didn't really understand what I was getting into. Meditation and yoga is not something that the generation before us or even our generation participated in and grew up accepting and saying this is a normal part of life. But I got to a point in my life where I had so much stress, I needed to do something to be able to continue every day. So for the youth, I would even suggest that, even if you don't start out with yoga, there are apps that have, the calming music that you can listen to because they're in their room all the time. They have their headphones in. So take one of those songs and listen to something calming, and you would be surprised how much it will relieve and release your stress.
Yes, as a parent, my daughter was a senior through her COVID year, and it took a toll in terms of her trying to navigate through that senior year, being remote, away from her friends and what she was accustomed to. But one of the things that she did, other than like her dance videos, was YouTube. We were able to find, and she has a gastrointestinal issue, and even with YouTube, because the anxiety would build up, then her stomach would have an issue for that day. But we discovered yoga for people with intestinal issues. And, we worked through some moves that would relieve the tension and the stress that was building up in her stomach. And our kids have access to YouTube and learning things that we could have never imagined. So, breathing exercises, learning more about cooking, anything. She would tap into all of these different formats and learn something new during the time that she, was home with COVID. I know that I'm blessed to say that as a parent, I was able to get my daughter an iPad, which got her up and away from her desk or the table. She could walk around the house and still do her work and be on the patio, or, take a quick stroll just around the house and not, have her body ache from sitting down for almost 8 hours at school. And one of the major things that I saw with my own students was just how withdrawn they became during COVID, and not knowing how to deal with it, or parents not knowing how to help their kids with being withdrawn through that period. They went from being around friends, being active, to all of a sudden everything came to a screeching halt. Well, who am I now? So our kids struggled with their identity. They struggled with depression. As an educator, I've taught only 11th grade for, how many years? And I absolutely love what I do. I laugh every day. Young people are like the best thing since sliced bread to me. But one of the things that I saw was just an increase in anxiety and depression, and having to, speak to parents about reaching out to a professional, breaking that stigma of needing, maybe someone to speak to, a therapist or some other person that's not family, because kids aren't always 100% ready to speak to their parents about what's going on in their minds, but they'll open up to a counselor, they'll open up to a therapist. And I thought it was an amazing thing that all of these health professionals had transitioned to video teleconferencing and could reach people they couldn't reach before. So that made an amazing difference for some kids. But I definitely, in the classroom, saw a lot of kids deal with anxiety on a level I'd never seen before.
And you brought up a good point that I wanna go deeper into: the youth and their identity, right? I know for me, I'm 28 years old. I'll be 29 in a few days, right? So at my age, I still am just kind of figuring out who is Jasmine Resse, right? And that's been a journey for me. Me trying to figure out who I am, what is my purpose, why does God have me here, has definitely been a journey for myself. How do we help the youth who, like you said, their identity pre-pandemic was in so many other things? We don't know what our world will look like as we continue to go into 2022 and 2023. We hope and pray that we'll get to a new normal, but what if we don't, right? What if we are always remote? How do we help our youth with that, Bree?
So for me, I feel like I can directly relate to that because when I went off to college, I had my whole life set ahead of me. I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I had it figured out, but my second year of college, I found out I had a chronic illness, and everything that I knew stopped for 3 years.
Wow.
So I really lost myself during that time, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't dance, which was the biggest part of me. I had lost a lot of connections with friends and family. I went to a college where nobody I knew was going, so I was there by myself, and I really felt like I lost my identity, and I didn't know what to do. And so for me, I think if we're talking about how can we help the youth, to always reach out. I know sometimes we feel like we're not, like, oh, they don't need us, they don't care about us, they don't. But those phone calls or those, hey, how you doing?
Right.
You alive?
Right. Your auntie calling on you, making sure you're okay.
Those help. Those mean something, especially in times like these, because when they don't know what to do, they might not want to talk to you, but in a drop of a second, they might find themselves pouring out to you for no reason because they don't know where else to pour into. And I think when we're talking about helping the youth, we have to be there. We have to be a listening ear, especially with teenagers. Often we get we don't want to talk to you, like, right. So, but in turn, I think Enedine can also agree that when we actually sit down and talk to them, they'll tell you that they appreciate that stuff. when you're constantly bothering them, why you got an attitude today? I see it all over your face. Why you got an attitude? They're like, in the moment they might not like it, but then they come around, they're like, something really was wrong with me that day. And that gives them a way to talk about it. That lets them know that somebody is willing to listen and that somebody cares. Because a lot of youth nowadays, they don't make it out of those situations. We have youth taking their lives, and sometimes because they feel like there's nothing else. There's nothing else. So I think whenever we do see someone, really anyone, in a position where they've changed or they seem like they're acting different, not like themselves, whether it's changing in a positive way, negative way, whatever, I think it's always important that we check, do the best that we can. We don't have to pry, but I think checking is enough,
It's difficult raising teenagers these days. There are a lot more distractions than perhaps when you were growing up. One of the things that I cherish most about my children is that they can come to my wife and I and talk about anything from A to Z. Maybe that approach can help you raise your teenagers too. We have a vibrant teen ministry at our church. We'd be glad to see you and your family this Sunday in church.
One of the things we do as coaches is we have a chat group called The Band, and it's for schools and activities, and it's almost like a Facebook. We can post, the kids can post, but you can also have side conversations with them to check on them. But one of the things we do is we're always posting something for them to actively engage in, whether we're, creating a poll, what do you think of these shoes, or practice this dance, but just staying in touch with them. And that was more important than ever last year when we were trying to coach and we're still dealing with COVID, because the kids weren't in school, but they could come to the school for the practice. And that meant the world to them to have that human interaction. So they grew accustomed to us being in their face. What's wrong with your face? What's wrong today? You okay? Did you eat?
Right.
Did you get enough sleep? What's going on? And of course they're like, Dr. Dre and Coach Bree, yeah, they old, but they knew that they could come to us if they needed anything or if something was going on at home. I want to participate this year, but, my family's having some hardships because, my dad got laid off. And, and you can talk to them about that, because that falls onto the children also, worrying about mom and dad.
Right.
Or worrying about mom who's doing it on her own, whatever the case may be, they absorb that feeling also. So we make ourselves accessible to them so that they know there is another adult that they can go to. And it's even worked for me as a classroom teacher. I have a band for my AP class, my honors class, my regular class. Yes, I just three subjects. But yes, giving them that opportunity to engage with you. And I'd never seen so much interaction on that app than I did last year. It meant a lot to them. So being back in the building this year and seeing me in person, I've had plenty of kids roll up to me at the door and they're like, Dr. Andre, it's me, so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, you're shorter than I thought you would be, or you're taller than I thought you would be, or look at how pretty your eyes are, or I find something to connect with them. Because if they went out of their way to come and speak to me, that means I meant something to them in that time of crisis when everybody was dealing with something. So just making time for them is very, very important.
I just want to add to the things that y'all pointed out, which is really important. So listening to you both just told us that it's important to build those relationships, and there's like a power of one. So they may not have relationships with everyone in the building, but at least if there's one individual that they feel safe and comfortable, that is like the most important thing to do. Because I know even for me personally, there's a set group of people, you may get a call if something's going on. So remembering that relationships really do matter, that just being present when they're walking through. So like you said, they walked through the building and they came up to you. More than likely, you stopped what you were doing to greet them, because there's a lot of times that, we get so caught up in what we're doing that we forget, okay, this person may need our undivided attention. And so just continuing that. And then also, I don't know where we came up with this concept that 17-year-olds needed to figure out what they wanted to do in life, dispelling that myth.
Yes,
We're getting close to 30, and I still don't know what I'm going to do day to day, and that is okay.
Right.
It's okay to realize that you don't have to have your life mapped out by high school, because you may get to college, you may go into your work field, and you may see something that's just totally different, and it may surprise you, but that's important too, to just make sure you know how you're feeling while you're going through a process.
So I want to speak directly to the teens, and I want to say to not be afraid to reach out for support. Oftentimes I have seen where kids can be so afraid to ask for support, and even adults. Like, it's not just kids, It's not just, sometimes I'm afraid to ask, but especially in those teenage years, those years are they're some of the most fragile years, and they have so much pressure on them, especially, everyday struggles, not even with the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, these kids deal with so many things. And so I think it is very important for you to find that certain person in the school, find that certain person in the church, find that certain person in the community, that you trust, build that relationship, build that connection. And when they ask you how you feeling, I want you to be honest. Don't say, "Oh, I'm good, Dr. Andre. Oh, I'm good, Miss Bree." Right. No, be very honest. You know what? I had a really bad day today. This is what happened. I was really mad at my teacher. I was really mad at Miss So-and-so. Be honest, because if you're not honest, they cannot support you the way you need to be supported, and they can't help you.
Right.
And so I guess what I want the teens to know is just to find that someone that you can trust, so that way in return, they can support you.
I love that.
Yes. As a mom of a young woman who lost her father, her 8th grade year, high school was not what she could have gotten out of it in terms of what she expected, because she was going through so much. But as a parent, I had to recognize that there was a crisis there. And I wasn't afraid to get her a grief counselor, have her speak to someone. We met with the counselor a few times together. And then she met with the counselor on her own so that they could build that relationship, and she was free to talk about what was weighing on her. And, she expressed how brokenhearted she was, of course, for losing her dad, my late husband, and just the impact that it had on her. There were things I didn't know that she was experiencing or didn't recognize because she was already an introvert. So she was experiencing depression. She had some suicidal ideation, and I wasn't afraid to drop everything and say, "We're going to get you some help." But most importantly, one of the things that I said to her, "I don't care about your grades. I care about you. You can always recover your classes. You can always go to a community college and start over if high school isn't what it needs to be, but I'm worried about you. What do you want me to do? How can I help you?" So once I took off the school pressure for her, it helped her to understand that, okay, mommy sees me, not just me in school, or you're jeopardizing your future. It really just made her understand that it's genuine love, and I don't care if you are a nail tech pushing a broom, but I want you to be happy. And that changed things for her, and she will always express that made a big difference in her healing. So as young people, you cannot be afraid to be honest with some of the adults that you're connected to, the ones you feel comfortable with, of course, but you have to be honest, just like you said. It matters. That's the only way we know how to help you.
Go ahead.
And thank you for actually bringing that parental perspective of it, because like you said, you took the time to get to explore more deeply what was going on with your daughter. And that's another key thing, especially as a parent. I know sometimes as a parent we can get bogged down with everyday's tasks, but I did some parent training in some previous roles, and I've trained parents to say, when you ask your child how they're doing, when they say fine or they say good, you explore. Probe. You have kids who will tell you that they fine and had the worst day of their life.
Right.
Also, especially like with emotions, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm good. No. I've also had to train parents and say, happy, mad, sad. Give me a feeling word. Because most times when you get that feeling word, then you can start exploring a little bit more deeply. And so that's what I always like to say, because sometimes that opens that door to that conversation of what's been going on, how you've been feeling. And that's what kids or teens, I'm sorry, I keep saying kids, I'm sorry, y'all. But that's what teens really need to know and really need to hear.
What I wanted to say was this is especially important for our young men who, when they watch television or even look at the other men around them, feel like they have to be hard. You can't show emotion. You can't tap into your feelings. You know, you're the name calling, you know, you're a simp or whatever the latest word is. Right. When you're not, it's called being mature. And a mature young man recognizes his emotions. And I feel like in our community often, men don't feel like they have that as an option, meaning to reach out to someone. So it affects them from their youth into their young adulthood, into their adulthood. And I think it's for everyone. It's a little easier with girls because we're more emotional, we talk a little more, but with young men, we have to work twice as hard to reach out to them and get them to open up and support them.
And Bree, I think you had something.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, speaking to the teens, when you are in those situations, don't push yourself. Don't push yourself to a limit that you're not comfortable with. And I also think that it's important that when you are feeling low, when you are feeling like your identity is lost and things like that, that you, like they said, build connections, have a support system. And I think you just don't want to put yourself in other people's shoes. I think that's the most important thing that I learned. Don't think about what other people are saying or what other people are thinking. You have to know that you come first. Your health comes first. Your mental health comes first. Your feelings come first. I think in our teenage years, we get so caught up with what everybody else is doing, what other people be thinking about us. Like, I know when I was, down and out, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I had always felt like I do everything on my own. I got this. I don't need to talk to nobody. And it got really bad. Like, it got really bad for me. And I think that once I realized that, okay, if I'm dead, nobody's going with me. It's me. I'm going to be there by myself, And I had to realize that if I'm sick, I can't show up for you because I have to take care of myself. And I think a lot of teens, they think that we have to be there. We have to do this because this is what society thinks, or this is how society feels. This is where I should be. I have to be at this party. But if you're not right here or you're not right here, take time out for yourself. I think it's important that we instill in the youth that you come first, because that's often overshadowed by all the things that they go through. Because they want to be in the scene, they want to be with the group, because that's what's cool at the time. And for me, I pushed myself really hard at a time where I should have sat back and said, okay, I need to work on me. Something's going on with myself. And right now I can't show up for you guys because I have to be there for myself. And so I think it's important that we let them know that, no matter what's going on, make sure that you put yourself first.
If you enjoyed this program, call us right now, 404-688-6680, or send an email to info@mountpleasantatl.org. Mount Pleasant Baptist Church is a congregation full of life and love for everybody. Would you consider sowing an offering? Whatever God lays on your heart to give would be a blessing to the ministry. On behalf of Pastor Roderick and Lady LaShonda Weathersby, thank you for your support. Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, Atlanta, Georgia.